Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and today, if you're watching this video, the day it releases on Thursday, the 3rd of August, it is the official start of the NFL preseason. I know it's Zach Wilson versus Kellen Mond, but ultimately, the NFL regular season is right around the corner, and it is officially fantasy football draft season as well as mock draft season. 12-team PPR mock draft today from the first overall spot. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots are the roster position for today's mock draft on FantasyPro's Draft Wizard. We're going to be drafting up against the expert consensus rankings on FantasyPros as well as the composite ADP from ESPN, NFL, RT Sports, and Sleeper. Before we get on into this mock draft, though, if you guys do end up enjoying today's video, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below if you are new. Whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video. It helps me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the number 1 overall spot. I also boosted the positional value of wide receivers to high because this season, unlike in years prior, the wide receiver position is going to be coming off the board much earlier in drafts. So we are the number 1 overall pick, and I think there are a couple of players that are acceptable to be selected number 1 overall. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Christian McCaffrey. Cooper Kupp is a guy that I really like, but the fact that he's banged up already, he is already hurt, has me panicking. He's expected to miss a few weeks with the hamstring injury. Now, I think everything's going to be fine. Everything that I have read has pointed towards the fact that Cooper Kupp is going to be all good. But obviously, with the fact that he was hurt at the end of last season, missed the whole end of the season, and now he's hurt again, obviously, some type of radar, the alarm in your head should start to sound. So Jefferson, Chase, or Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, are acceptable for the 101. I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. He is the safest player at this pick with the most upside, or the equal amount of upside, right? Justin Jefferson could easily be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football this season. The Minnesota Vikings defense is complete and utter dog shit, and they are going to be throwing the ball at one of the highest paces in the NFL. Justin Jefferson is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, so it should be a no-brainer that he is the number 1 overall pick. I would say in a lot of leagues, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I'd say 60% of the time, Jefferson will be the 101, and then the other times they'll be either McCaffrey or Jamar Chase. Again, if you want to take McCaffrey number 1 overall, go right ahead, Jamar Chase. But Jamar Chase, there's also some worries for me because the fact that Joe Burrow's banged up. Now, obviously, we're still in early August, so no need to sound the alarms yet. But as we get closer to your actual draft in either late August or early September, if Joe Burrow, the signs aren't pointing towards him being good to go for week 1, then you have to really start to get nervous about Jamar Chase, at least early on in the season. And that would make me be kind of a little bit more nervous to draft him number 2 overall like I normally would. So after Justin Jefferson, we see Jamar Chase followed by Christian McCaffrey, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler, Bijan Robinson, Travis Kelce, Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, and Devontae Adams. The second round opens with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Garrett Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Patrick Mahomes, Ramondre Stevenson, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle away, Waddle, till the very next day, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, and 9-inch Nicholas Chubb. Now, the 8th overall team goes with the stack of Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Now, how often am I going to do something like this? Probably 0% of the time, because I don't want my first 2 picks to be the onesie positions. While it's awesome to have a tight end like Travis Kelce on your team who could score 30 fantasy points in any given game, there are very little amount of tight ends in the National Football League that in any given game could score 4 fucking touchdowns, right? But I don't want to be blowing my load in the first 2 rounds with a quarterback and a tight end, because again, while I like Patrick Mahomes, there's a chance at the 308 you could get Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen. And while I love stacking, right, because it's very likely that if Mahomes goes off, so is Travis Kelce, I just don't want to be paying that high of draft equity for those 2 guys. Now, if Mahomes fell to the 3rd round and you drafted Kelce, and then say you drafted A.J. Brown, and then you can get Patrick Mahomes, then that's amazing. But I don't personally want to be paying my first and second round pick to be a quarterback and tight end. I think that is a little too high for me. I know some people will say, Nick, it's Mahomes, it's Kelsey, and they will talk themselves into it. I'm not saying that it is a terrible strategy. It could easily work, right? Kelsey's the number one tight end. Mahomes the number one quarterback. It could pay off. But I think there's a good chance that someone ends up outscoring Pat Mahomes at the quarterback position. So we got Justin Jefferson, and we are back up on the board. For me, the quarterbacks are off the board for me in the second round. I think in the third round, I'm comfortable taking a guy like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, but it really just depends on where the value is at on the board, depending how much I like the running backs and wide receivers. So best running backs available, Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Joe Mixon. Now, I don't really like Najee Harris that much, if I'm being honest with you. But the thing that I do like about Najee Harris is while there's all this hype about Jaylen Warren, I feel as though it is almost the mortal lock of the century that Mike Tomlin continues to use the workhorse running back kind of system, right? We saw it with Lev Bell, we saw it with James Conner, we've seen it with Najee Harris. Mike Tomlin doesn't want two backs. He doesn't fuck with the running back by committee system. So, I like Breece Hall a ton. But Dalvin Cook could still sign there, and that would absolutely obliterate the value of Breece Hall. And again, I think Breece Hall could still be a great fantasy back if Dalvin Cook is there, but not worth the second round pick, right? Mixon, Jones, I like them, but not in the second round or even in the early third round. So looking at the board here, we're probably going to go with at least one wide receiver and maybe even double receiver here. Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, and DK Metcalf. So this is a situation that I've been in a ton of drafts. If you were just going to take one wide receiver here, you have to weigh your options. How safe do you want to be? Early on in fantasy drafts, I always talk about how safety is king. You want to wrap the condom around your fantasy football team. If you want to be as safe as possible, you go with T. Higgins. Assuming that Joe Burrow is able to play week number 1, which is my assumption right now, then T. Higgins every single week is going to be somewhere from wide receiver 9 through 15. Obviously, with Jamar Chase there, it's very unlikely T. Higgins cracks the top 5 at wide receiver, but it's also very unlikely that T. Higgins completely shits the bed, and if something happens to Chase, then Higgins could easily be a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. Devontae Smith locked into a great offense with the Eagles. He is kind of more of a risky option week in and week out, but he has the upside to win your week. Chris Olave could literally be a top 5 wide receiver, but in my opinion, if Michael Thomas plays the whole season, then you are kind of losing out on some targets, in my opinion, that way. So normally we go with Higgins. We went with Olave last time in this situation, so we're going to go with Devontae Smith this time of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think a lot of people were shocked with how good Devontae Smith was last season. Top 10 wide receiver, as was A.J. Brown. This is one of the best offenses in the NFL, one of the best offensive lines, and Jalen Hurts is a much better passer than people give him the credit for. So we are going to do something a little bit spicy here, right? I talked about how I don't want to draft the quarterback and the tight end with my first 2 picks, even if it is the illustrious Kansas City Chiefs stack. But we're going to do it here with the Eagles, and we are going to stack up Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. Now, some people may be scared to do this because if the Eagles shit the bed on any given week, then Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts are very likely to get thrown in the dirt for fantasy, right? So if Hurts shits the bed, more than likely so does Devontae Smith. So 2 of your main players are bad. But on the same note, if they're just normal, you're probably going to have a good week. And if the Eagles are slapping up a team, then Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith could combine for 60, 70 fantasy points potentially. And that's something I am attracted to in fantasy, going for the stack. I don't think you should be reaching, saying you need to go into your draft wanting to stack your wide receiver or your tight end with your quarterback, but when it falls to you in a situation like this, sure, I'm fine with Olave, Higgins here, but I think by the time we come back around to pick in the 4th round, I'm probably going to like another wide receiver, and at this spot, again, I think Breece Hall's fine, but if Dalvin Cook shows up there, Breece Hall is his value is going to plummet into the deep depths of earth, so we're going to go with Jalen Hurts here. He's my number 1 quarterback in fantasy football, and the early 3rd round is where I am comfortable taking him. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, in the middle of the 3rd round, I could get him, but I don't pick in the middle of the 3rd round. I'm the first overall pick, so I had to go ahead and take him there if I wanted him, and I think in a lot of redraft leagues that you guys are going to be in, say on ESPN, where Jalen Hurts is ranked and Pat Mahomes are ranked at the 205, 206, 207 in that range, you might not even be able to get a quarterback that you like in the third round because all Allen, Hurts, and Mahomes could go in the second round. I think the more smart fantasy players, the people that are watching videos in early August, they know not to do that, but not everyone plays with the sharpest knives in the cupboard. After Jalen Hurts, Najee Harris, Josh Allen, Travis Etienne, Mark Andrews, Breece Hall, Joe Mixon, Chris Olave in the third round, late in the third. I think that's a great pick. Again, I think there's some serious risk there, but the upside is really high and it kind of outweighs the risk. DK Metcalf, especially in the late third. TJ Hawkinson, T. Higgins, DeAndre Hopkins. I was hoping we'd get him. Joe Shiesty to open the fourth, then Lamar, Aaron Jones, Deebo Samuel, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Miles Sanders, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Wiki, and Deontay Johnson. Make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button and that like button down below if you have enjoyed. I love Deontay Johnson. In the fourth round is too early for me. And then there was another pick that I love DeAndre Hopkins. I love DeAndre Hopkins. I was thinking we'd be able to get him in the fourth round. Maybe his ADP is going to continue to keep rising on up like your cock in the morning, assuming that people start to realize that the Tennessee Titans is actually a pretty good landing spot for DeAndre Hopkins. So Kenneth Walker is still available. He is dealing with a groin injury, and that doesn't necessarily completely take him off my board, but it does make me a little bit nervous, right? He's out for a while with a groin. And then we also have his teammate, Zach Charbonnet, with the shoulder injury, and they're talking about how the timeline's uncertain. What if Kenny McIntosh is the leader of the running back room in Seattle, right? Now, again, I'm not saying Kenneth Walker's a bad pick in the fourth round, but this is something I will talk about in the video that you guys watch later today. We're going to have 2 videos today because it's August. We like to have some fun. I talk about not chasing injuries, right? In fantasy football, the injuries are going to find you. They're going to find you in the back alley. They're going to mug you. They're going to take your wallet. They're going to take your phone. And to add insult to the injury, they're going to fucking give you a wedgie and take your shoes, right? The injuries are going to bend you over a table, most likely every single year. The injuries will find you. So don't go into the draft trying to find the injuries, Don't chase the injuries down. Now, in the fourth round, a lot of the risk is negated, right? Because this isn't the first 3 rounds. You can take the risks the later you get in the draft, but right now, with the groin injury, if Charbonnet misses serious time and Kenneth Walker is fine 2 weeks from now, then Kenneth Walker might actually be like a second or third round pick, right? Because the reason why I didn't like Walker is because Charbonnet is going to steal all the pass catching value, and Pete Carroll talked going into the season after the draft that this was going to be a battle for the running back 1 role. Now, Walker might mess around and lose. But with the injuries, if Charbonnet's out for a long period of time and Walker's good, then Walker is going to be a high-valued player in like the third round, in my opinion. So looking at the board, we already got our quarterback. These tight ends, you're kind of just mixing around with them at this pick. Kittle, Goddard, Waller is my favorite out of that group. I wouldn't mind taking Kittle. Looking at receivers, we're definitely going to go with 1 wide receiver here at least. Chris Godwin, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, Terry McLaurin. So with our first pick, we took Jefferson. As safe as it gets, with legitimate wide receiver 1 upside. Then Devontae Smith, not as safe of an option weekly, but the ceiling is incredibly high, and at the end of the season, it's very likely that he finishes inside the top 14. And then we have Jalen Hurts, who obviously everyone knows could easily be the #1 quarterback in fantasy football, so I feel like we have a pretty safe roster so far. Godwin, London, Jeudy, McLaurin, Watson, Lockett. It's going to say that it's a reach on Watson, but I think I like Watson the most out of these wide receivers. Christian Watson, to me, is a guy that a lot of people are willing to fade because they are so nervous about Jordan Love. They think that Jordan Love is going to plummet the value of the Green Bay Packers. Now, Christian Watson succeeded last year with a worn-down version of Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm not even saying that Jordan Love's going to be the same as Aaron Rodgers was last year, but as long as Jordan Love doesn't suck complete and utter donkey hog, I fully expect Christian Watson to be able to be the clear wide receiver 1 on this offense. We've already seen clips in training camp where Jordan Love is floating the ball right into Christian Watson. It looks like maybe not Walmart Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball to Christian Watson. He just looks so good. He was so good last year, and I don't think this is a Peyton Hillis 1-year wonder type deal. I think Christian Watson is legit. Now, while I stated don't chase injuries, in the 5th round, I'm going to take Walker because I think this Charbonnet thing is very serious. when you say what they said about Charbonnet, where it's like out indefinitely, that brings a little bit of nervousness. Not a little bit of nervousness. This is DEFCON 5. This is full-on panic mode. So if Charbonnet misses time and then Walker's groin heals, there's a couple of weeks into the season. You don't need him to be practicing all the time in training camp. We know how good he is. You just insert him week 1. If that is the case, then Kenneth Walker would be a steal in the 5th round. But we're going to have to load up on running backs because we drafted so many receivers early and we drafted Jalen Hurts. And our running back number 1 is a guy that obviously has some question marks with him, his injury, and the fact is that if Charbonnet is fully healthy, a couple weeks in the season, Kenneth Walker could be doomed a little bit. So after Walker, Chris Godwin, George Kittle, me Timbers, Dallas Goedert, Hollywood Brown, Justin Fields, Terry McLaurin, J.K. Dobbins, Dameon Pierce, Drizzy Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Pacheco, Alexander Madison, Cam Akers, Justin Herbert the pervert, Darren Waller, Michael Pittman, Kyle Pitts, Mike Williams, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Trevor Lawrence. Now, a report came out yesterday about Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended. No shit, Sherlock. Of course Alvin Kamara was going to be suspended, but they still don't tell us how many games it's going to be. Hopefully we figure this out today. That will definitely adjust where I'm taking Kamara. If he's suspended for 6 games, I don't want nothing to do with Kamara. But if he's only missing, say, 2 games, which is what some people might think, then you got to move Kamara up. Dalvin Cook is just stuck in the 6th, 5th round right now. I have no idea what to think about him. He goes to the Jets. Still doesn't have a contract. It seems like he's playing chicken with the Miami Dolphins. Maybe the Dolphins get him. Maybe he goes to the Patriots. This is something so annoying, right? Fournette's still available. Zeke's still available. Like, these running backs, again, while Zeke I don't think is that good, Leonard Fournette I don't think is that good anymore at this point in their career. This could have some huge ramifications for fantasy football and completely tank the value of a guy that maybe, like again, I've talked up so much. I love Ramondre Stevenson. But if Zeke shows up there, I'll be fine. But if Leonard Fournette shows up there, I think Leonard Fournette still has a little bit more juice left in the tank. I'd start to panic a little bit on Ramondre Stevenson, especially since Lenny can catch passes at a pretty good level. So can Stevenson, obviously. But, something to worry about. Rashad White, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, all on the board here. We have this pick, and then we have another one right away. So I think we're just good to double tap the running back position and not think too much about it here. Obviously, we're going to think about the pick, but we don't have to overthink the fact that we're taking running backs here. We already got the loaded Jefferson, Smith, and Watson triple trio threesome at wide receiver. So Rashad White, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, James Cook. I am nowhere near close to drafting Rashad White. I understand why people like Rashad White. This is an offense that's going to be bad. I like Evans. I like Godwin. Why? They're going to have to throw the ball, and they are going late. Rashad White is a running back. Sure, he's going to catch some passes, but the depth there right now is shit, but it wouldn't shock me if they bring in another running back. Swift's a guy that I haven't clicked too much. He's a pretty risky option, but with this kind of a build where we have the elite quarterback, we have this wide receiver core, I almost want to take more of these riskier guys that I think could pay off big time. Swift might be a swing and a miss, right? This could be a full-on 3-headed backfield committee with Swift, with Rashad, with 2A's Penny, as well as with Kenneth Gainwell. Or maybe DeAndre Swift is just catching a bunch of passes, right? The report from yesterday, maybe they will have it primarily used as a pass catcher on Wednesday. That's from last week. They've been talking him up as a pass catcher. I think he's a great player. The reason why, what I read is Detroit, the reason why they got rid of him is because he wasn't listening to the coaches. So hopefully he starts doing that in Philadelphia. Now, maybe that's just a rumor, and I'm spreading lies. So DeAndre Swift, if you're watching this, clear it up with me. You can call me on the phone. I'll leave my number in the DMs if you want to DM me. So looking at the board here, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, James Cook, Rashad White. I think the safest option here is Montgomery. You know what Montgomery's going to do? He's going to get 1 million touches, and he's going to get a lot of goal line touches on an offense that I like. Javonte Williams has the injury, might take a couple of weeks for him to ramp fully up, but I think he has the upside to be a league winner. James Cook's a guy that I recently talked myself into. He's going to be in the video you guys watch a little bit later today. But I'm going to go David Montgomery here. I think he's the safest option with a ton of upside as well. If something happened to Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery would fall ass backwards into being a top 10 running back in fantasy football. And even if nothing happens to Jahmyr Gibbs, I know the receiving upside for David Montgomery would be lower, even though he's a great pass-catching running back. There is still the upside of they get to the goal line a lot. They're going to score a lot of touchdowns. Jamal Williams, this non-superior, this inferior running back was able to barrel his way into the end zone all these times. Imagine what David Montgomery's going to do. They're going to do some damage in Detroit. I'm a big fan of Montgomery, and I'd probably move out Swift in my lineup and put Montgomery in for week 1 and see how Swift does. So after Montgomery, George Pickens, Tyler Lockett in my pocket. Skirt, Dickie, Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, Mike Evans, Deshaun Watson, Brandon Ayuk, Kirko Chains, Rashad White, Rashad Master Bateman, Christian Kirk, Brandon Cooks, Jahan Dotson, Javonte Williams, the Niners defense, James Cook, Treylon Burks, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Antonio Gibson, Gabe Davis, Philadelphia Eagles, and Jordan Addison Ray, the fastest wide receiver alive, at least in cars. If you're drafting a defense in the 8th round, you need to give your head a shake because that is a terrible strategy. I get what people think. The Eagles defense, the 49ers defense, they're so good. Problem is, unless they are this prolific defense that is able to withstand these elite offenses in the NFL, the Niners are going to have bad games. So are the Eagles, right? They're going to go up against an offense that isn't playing around, and they are going to get a smackdown laid on them, brother. They're going to have bad games, but they're also going to have great games. But what you should do is just stream defenses. Every week, find a defense playing not so hard of an opponent. Nick, how do I do that? Well, you subscribe to the channel because every single week I'll be dropping defenses to stream the video, and closer to late August, early September when people are drafting, I'm going to drop 5 must-draft defenses. Talk about those defenses that I love for week 1. We talk about them in the mock drafts, but that video will make it even simpler because you watch the video. You don't have to scrub through 5,000 mock drafts to figure out which defenses I like. So we could go with a tight end at this point, but since Waller's already gone, once you get into this range, right, after Waller, Goddard, Pitts, Kittle, Andrews, Kelsey, where it's Freiermuth, Ingram, Njoku, Schultz, Dulcich. I like Freiermuth. I like Njoku. I like Schultz. But what the fuck is the difference, right? Am I going to leave the draft with my panties in a bunch if I don't get Pat Freiermuth? I like Pat Freiermuth, but no. I'm not going to give a shit. I don't think there's that much of a difference. There's a huge difference between Kelsey and those guys, but there's not much of a difference between them. How many teams have taken a tight end near me? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tight ends already off the board. I think by like the 10th round, we'll want to take one, but I'm not pigeonholing myself into any of these guys because, again, I don't really see that much of a difference between any of them. Maybe one of them goes crazy, but if I'm in 5 leagues and I take a tight end every time in the 8th round, I probably want to take a different one every single time, if I'm being honest with you, unless you have some stone cold conviction on any of those guys. So we're going to go wide receiver and running back here because, again, we don't need to take a tight end. Looking at the wide receiver landscape here, Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Thomas, Elijah Moore, Quentin Johnston, Kadarius Toney, Jacoby Myers, Zay Flowers, Nico Collins. So I believe Watson, Smith, and Jefferson are all going to be hits. I don't think any of them are going to bust. I think if one was to bust, right on my face, like my name was fucking Mia Malkova, it would be Christian Watson. I don't think he will, but I think out of those guys, that's the highest chance. So we already have these safe options. So there's no need to take a layup here. There's no need to draft Juju because he's going to be getting targets in New England and blah, blah, blah. This safe pick with no upside. There's no need to take the fucking layup, right? You don't need the layup. You already got guys that you're confident in. So why not take a risk? Why not take a swing for the fences? Maybe it's a miss, right? Maybe you look like a buffoon, but it's later in the draft. You can take the risks. So I'm going for the moonshot, the great Bambino, pointing to the fucking outfielder, outside the outfield. Home run, baby. Hell, I watch a lot of baseball. That saying right there. All right, so for me, it's either Michael Thomas, Elijah Moore, or Quentin Johnston. Michael Thomas, I watched him today, or yesterday, as you guys are watching this, today as I'm talking. Confusing, right? But yeah, so I watched him. He was running what looked like in molasses, right? He looked kind of slow on his normal route, running straight, his go. Then on the slant, you can see he still got it in him. He still got that dog in him, the slant man himself. If he's healthy all season, I think Michael Thomas might fuck around and be a top 10 receiver. Will he be able to stay healthy? Probably not, right? That's like, betting on that is not a great bet, right? It would be plus a zillion because we know he keeps getting hurt. But if he stays healthy, I think that's a worthy pick. We're going to go with Elijah Moore this time, though. Could be the number 2 receiver in Cleveland, should be. In terms of looking at reception perception from Matt Harmon, Elijah Moore just throws himself off the page. He looks incredible in that. Now, he never really put any stats up with the Jets. He's been in the NFL for 2 years, hasn't really done much. So if you look at the stat sheet, it's not amazing, but he does run excellent routes. I think Deshaun Watson's going to turn things up to the maximum, like his album just went platinum, and I think that we are going to see some great games out of the Cleveland Browns offense. I think Elijah Moore could have a great season. Again, I'm still an Amari Cooper guy, but I think Elijah Moore could be a sneaky pick. Again, maybe he just sucks. Maybe he's just not good. Maybe the reason why he was getting targets in New York was because he wasn't great, but it's probably because everything in New York with the Jets always ends up being a disaster. So we are going to go running back here. The layup pick would be A.J. Dillon. He's a startable RB2 every week. You're praying that he gets the touchdowns in front of Aaron Jones because he's not going to catch passes. But yeah, he's a safe pick. And then if something happens to Aaron Jones, knock on wood, A.J. Dillon could elevate himself. But we're not taking the safe pick. We're not taking the layup. Again, we already got the layup in David Montgomery. We're going aggressive. And I have talked up, I have spread in the news. I've been spreading the good word door to door of Khalil Herbert. Now, Khalil Herbert jumps off the screen in terms of efficiency. He is as efficient as it gets. 5.7 yards per attempt last season. Now, I know they have other running backs on the team. I know he's not the only running back on the team. But if you look at the depth chart and you look at the other running backs, how can you talk yourself into those guys over Khalil Herbert, who we've seen do it with the Bears? I think this offense is going to be great at running the ball, and I think Khalil Herbert has sneaky upside as like a top 20 back, and with top 12 upside in good matchups, because you already know the Bears are going to be scoring a bunch of points in a lot of games this season, and at least that's the hope, right? If you're drafting Justin Fields in the 5th round, you're assuming that. We didn't do that this draft, but we love Justin Fields. After Khalil Herbert, we see Pat Freiermuth, Kadarius Toney, Jeff Wilson, Samaje Perine, Michael Thomas, Cortland Sutton, A.J. Dillon, Odell Beckham Jr., Jamal with 2A's Williams, Zay Flowers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Corvette, Quentin Johnston, Jacoby Myers, Brian Robinson, DJ Chark, DJ Chark, Jameson Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Alan Lazard, Jarek McKinnon, Nico Collins, Tyler, Boyd, and Rashad Penny. So Jameson Williams was getting his name drug around. People were preying on this guy's downfall recently. They're saying this guy sucks ass in training camp. This guy's garbage. We've seen that in the past. You remember this guy's name's Jamar Chase. This guy couldn't catch a football to save his life in like all these early practices for the Bengals. He was saying there's like reports that he needed the college football white lines that are on the ball, to see the ball. It was like, dude, this guy is a bust in his rookie year. This guy's going to suck. Like, why are people drafting this guy? That's what I was thinking. I was like, dude, look at all these idiots drafting Jamar Chase. And then Jamar Chase pulled his pants down and literally took a dump on my chest. I looked so dumb. So did a lot of people, though. So again, while training camp, it does matter in some way. It will, if you hear, if you, for instance, you love DeAndre Swift, and then the beat reporters of Philadelphia are giving him the gawk 9,000. You're going to use that as confirmation bias. But you don't want to go all the way into where the training camp moves the needle so heavily for you, because if that's the case, you might start fading a guy like Jameson Williams. Now, he's going to miss 6 games. So if you're in a league without an IR spot for suspended guys, then don't draft Jameson Williams. But if you have the IR spot, you could draft Jameson Williams, throw him on your IR spot, and then a couple weeks into the season, obviously when he comes back, maybe give him a week, 2 weeks, and then you see how he does, and you throw him in your lineup, and if he sucks, you just cut him. I think Jameson Williams is a little better than the reports are kind of spreading the news about right now. So again, look, we're in the 10th round. Evan Ingram's available, right? I don't love Evan Ingram, but I also don't, I like Njoku better. I like Schultz better. So we can almost keep waiting, but at some point, then we're going to be stuck with, Chig. I like Higbee, but I'd rather just draft the tight end now that I like. We already drafted Elijah Moore, which makes me a little bit more out on maybe drafting Njoku. So this time we'll go with Evan Ingram. He had a really good season last year in 2022. They add Calvin Ridley, but I think what Calvin Ridley adds to this offense is more going to impact, it's going to knock Zay Jones out of the pecking order. I don't think it's going to knock Evan Ingram out of there. I think he could still score some touchdowns. He's a guy that in the past just had butterfingers, couldn't catch the ball to save his life. And then last year, magically, it all connected. Stars aligned, and the guy finally figured it out. It was amazing to watch, honestly. As someone that you guys have been watching me for years, right? I appreciate you. Even if you just started watching today, I appreciate you. But for years, dude, it was every single draft. It was just why did someone draft Evan Ingram? What the fuck were they thinking, right? Like, for years, he was from a mile away. You could spot this guy's going to be a bust. People still drafted him. But now in Jacksonville, it seems like things have really changed. Maybe the coaching in wasn't the best, which is true, right? Like, Brian Daboll really shape-shifted that offense. Like, I know Darren Waller, I think he's going to smash in the Giants this year. But, like, if Evan Ingram was still there, like, you could talk yourself into Evan Ingram smashing with Brian Daboll 100%. So, looking at our team, we got Walker, Swift, Montgomery, and Herbert. We need more running backs, right? I'm just not confident enough in them. Like, my receivers, I'm fine with. Perfectly fine with them. We need more running backs. We need more to this cavalry of a ragtag group of running backs. Again, we're hoping Walker, Swift, they both pay off. But let's be honest with you. I have never been 100% sold on Kenneth Walker, if I'm being honest with you. I still like him at this value, but with the groin injury, a lot of risk, right? If you're doing if this was an actual draft, which is what I treat these mock draft videos like, I would be kind of nervous right now with the running back room. So that's why we're going to keep smashing running backs here. Pause. We're going Elijah Mitchell, right? Weekly value, if he's in a great matchup, you can start him. But let's be honest, like, McCaffrey's going to be scoring a lot of the points. If something happens to McCaffrey, you have just drafted in the 11th round the starting running back on a team that's coached by Kyle Shanahan, that even if it's Big Cock Brock, Mono Man Sam, or Trey Lance, they're going to score points. It's just destiny here that Elijah Mitchell becomes like one of the best picks in fantasy if something happens to McCaffrey. Knock on wood. If nothing happens to McCaffrey, then maybe that's a swing and a miss. But when you're drafting heavy wide receivers early, when you pay the piper, you pay the price on Jalen Hurts, these early quarterbacks, you have to understand that your running back room might be a little soft, but our receiver room makes up for it. Hurts makes up for it. And I think Evan Ingram, where we got him, was a real value. So we're to draft another running back here. Another one. DJ Khaled style. But after we drafted Evan Ingram, we got to recap the players. Damian Harris, Devin, 2 Giants, Kendre Miller, Van Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Sky with 2 Ys more, Tyler Algier, Raheem Mostert, Rondale Moore, Darnell, here comes the Mooney, Zay Jones, the 12th opens, it's a tight end run, David Njoku, Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary, running back, receivers of Mingo and Gallup. And then we see some more tight ends. Higbee, Cole Kmet, then Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, Jalen Hyatt, and Greg Dulcich. So we're back up here. We're going with another running back. We only need 5 receivers on this team. We need more running. We are in desperate need of upside, and we are going to go with some more upside here. We're going to click on Tank Bigsby, who I think is going to steal some work away from ETN. I think he might end up being a better pass catcher than ETN. He's definitely the better goal line back than ETN. ETN, skinny, built like fucking Kevin Durant and Devontae Smith. Tank Bigsby is built like a brick shithouse. He is built like a wrecking ball. After Tank, we see... Oh, it's our pick again. I don't know why I just did that. I hate to see it. That's what happens when we record these videos a little late at night. Just little behind the scenes look. It is midnight as I'm recording this. It is what it is. I think I am my funniest as we get, Nick at night, as we get later at the night, as I get a little delirious, start talking. I think it's a little bit more funny. So let's keep going here. I was talking like Deadpool, giving you guys some behind the scenes here. We're going receiver. Dobbs, Peoples-Jones. We already have Elijah Moore, so like I like Peoples-Jones in best ball. Maybe he finishes ahead of Moore, right, as the number 2 guy. But we already paid the price for Moore. We already drafted Moore. No need to just hop back on the Browns this way. I love Isaiah Hodgins. I think he's the clear number 1 in New York, but we've already talked about him so many times. We've taken him in all these drafts. And even though it's like the last pick of our team besides defensive kicker, again, like you can do that because it's later in the draft and you're not going to end up butt-fucking yourself if you draft Isaiah Hodgins every time. But for the sake of the mock draft, we don't want to just draft the same guy every time super late in drafts. Early on in drafts, though, like I really do think you should get different. Like if you're the number 1 pick, say you do 10 drafts and you're the number 1 pick every single time, you should be taking Jefferson 4 times or 3 times maybe, that's sprinkling Chase, McCaffrey, maybe even go Tyreek Hill 3 times, number 1 overall, right? You want to kind of spread things out there because you don't want one injury to just bend your whole fantasy existence out, right? Because if Justin Jefferson gets hurt, knock on wood, you drafted him 10 times, more than likely all of your teams are fucked, right? You could be this waiver wire guru, but your teams are sunken heavily by that, obviously. So we're going receiver. I like a lot of guys that I like this late, so we're just going to go this time. I like Tyquan Thornton. I like Devontae Parker. I like Curtis Samuel. I'm going to go Alec Pierce. seemingly the number 2 in Indianapolis. Seems like Anthony Richardson's going to be the guy. I think Anthony Richardson's a better passer than what they had last year. So I think Alec Pierce could be in for that breakout season that Alec Pierce enthusiasts are looking for. Everyone knows that Alec Pierce is a real lunch pail guy, first guy in, last guy out, the type of guy you want to date your daughter. After Alex Pierce, we got Jalen Warren, Cordero Patterson, Hayden Hurst, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Foreman, Johnson, Zeke, Chuba Hubbard, my boy Tua Tagovailoa, Kenneth Gainwell, Ford. We ain't talking about an F-150. Dallas Cowboys, Bills, Tucker, Ertz, McPherson, and a bunch of defensive kickers, and Jawan Johnson. We're going with our kicker first. We're going to go... I guess we will actually take the best kicker available. We're going to go with my boy. I want to take my old bitch Lane, but my young Hoku. But Harrison Bucker is actually better than him. I was going to take Dicker, the kicker. He's all the way down here. Cameron Dicker for the LA Chargers. And then we are going to go with, let's see. Again, you want to be looking at the games. Look at who they're playing. The defense. The Ravens are going up against the first game ever of CJ Stroud. You want that. Even if CJ Stroud ends up having a gookie? Even if he ends up having a good rookie season, I would be shocked if he came out week 1 against the Ravens defense and just went bananas. So we got an 87 out of 100. In my opinion, this is a 100 out of 100. Our team is Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Walker, Swift, Jefferson, Smith, Ingram, Watson, Ravens, Bucker, Montgomery, Elijah Moore, Khalil Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, Tank Bigsby, and Alec Pierce. I know a lot of people won't like this team. I already know that because the running backs are weak. But I think when you have Hurts and Jefferson and Smith and Watson, it makes up for that. For some people, it won't. But knowing that this is a redraft team where I can go on the waiver wire myself, right? Some big running back takes the injury, takes the L. I can go on the waiver wire, pick up the running back. I can use my fab. I can maneuver, right? It's a long season, so you can find guys to fill in if Walker and Swift end up busting. Now, maybe Khalil Herbert ends up being the second coming of sweetness Walter Payton, and I look like a genius, so that could happen as well. But thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about the team. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know. I love you guys all so much. Sound off in the comments. Have a good one. Goodbye!